So it is a weird and wonderful time in mobile marketing measurement. There are so many changes going on in iOS. We see them coming on Android as well. And guess what? It only gets more difficult when you're looking at the kids area. Those apps have different requirements. There are different legal requirements as well about what you can or can't do. How do you do marketing measurement for kids? To chat about that, we are talking to Eldad Ben Tora, who is the co-CEO of Kidoz, which says it is the world's largest mobile ad tech company for kids. Welcome, Eldad.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, super good to have you. Let's start here. Talk about the apps for kids market overview. So many developers that I talk to really have no clue what size of opportunity there is here, what this market looks like, and what you need to do to succeed in it.
Sounds great. So I guess that there are several angles to look at the market, depending who you are. If you are a kid, so obviously you know that the mobile is your number one device. You're
Yes.
spending more than 5, 6 hours a day on your device. You're practically glued to your device. This is the one device that you will never give away. And this is when it comes to kids. They represent today more than 30% of all internet users. Every 40% of every new user is a kid under the age of 13. So in terms of usage, it's probably the biggest market out there.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are an app publisher, then you look at this market from a slightly more challenging perspective because
Yes.
although you enjoy the traffic, it's quite challenging to monetize the traffic. It's quite challenging to make a living from this market. At least it used to be until, I don't know, a year or two ago. So
Mhm.
the ones that are with us for a while now, they know that things have changed, but it's still a challenging market from policies and regulations point of view. You need to be very careful.
Yeah.
If you're an advertisers in the space, this is the third. I don't want to even start talking about parents because we we as parents, I think we lost the war, right? Like if we think that we could even start a war with our kids and have some managed screen time, we lost that war a long time ago. But let's go back to advertisers, which is our third audience here. And in terms of advertisers, they pretty much lost their number one channel, which used to be TV, right? When even 5, 6 years ago, kids were, waking up, opening TV sets, Saturday morning, watching commercials, watching TV shows, and this channel that used to serve kids brands heavily is gone. Like
Mm-hmm.
again, I don't know
Mm-hmm.
when do you have kids, and the audience, if they have kids, it's been a while since they've seen a commercial break, right?
Yeah.
If they do watch TV, they watch Netflix and other streaming services. So the problem that we saw, and again, Kidoz didn't start as an ad network. We started actually as a solution to help kids enjoy the wonders of mobile browsing safely.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
about 3, 4 years ago, we discovered that the biggest problem in the market is the monetization and advertising in the space, and we kind of shifted our solution towards this. And so advertisers, they understand that kids are out there. They know that kids are playing, games, watching videos. This is basically what kids are doing. But they didn't understand how can they reach kids on mobile. Do they go directly to some apps? Do they have a focal point where they can address hundreds or thousands of apps through one focal point? What do they do? It kind of looked for them as if their money evaporates. And we saw the frustration from advertisers on one side, where they say, I want to reach kids, but I can't really understand how. And we saw the publishers on the other side saying, well, we have tons of kids using us, but we can't really monetize. And
Mm-hmm.
we said, okay, let's just match those two together. So
So
in terms of the market, it's just a matter of organizing it in a way that will allow those two mega forces to join forces.
super interesting. So we're going to get into what that looks like and how you access that market, as well as how you monetize that market. Give us maybe a brief overview of Kidoz a little bit here, because it's funny. You said, you started looking at that space. It's almost like you were ahead of the times, because right now we're seeing every publisher acquire some ad network or some ad tech vendor or some other technology to create a bigger stack and to have more data and to know more what to do. Well, you kind of made that shift the opposite direction some years ago. What does Kidoz do?
So again, we started. You know what they say about entrepreneurs? If you do it ahead of time, it's like doing it too late. It's the same crime.
Yes.
So the fact that we were ahead of time, maybe helped us a bit. But I can tell you that we kind of walked in the desert for a while. And Kidoz has been around for 9 years already, and only in the last 4 years things are really skyrocketing. And we laid the foundations for the network. And when it comes to kids and working with kids publishers, kids brands, credibility is probably the number one factor. So it takes them really a lot of time to trust you, and this is why it's so difficult for new players to enter the space and to gain the credibility of a trusted SDK. So again, 4 years ago, we released our SDK, which helped them app publishers to monetize. And maybe let's touch on the difference between kids advertising and normal
Yes.
advertising, because
Yes.
you may say, kids publishers can just put in any SDK and would do whatever they possibly can, but this is not the truth. And the main difference is the data.
Mhm.
I'm guessing that if you're hearing this blog, COPA is familiar to you. At least you've heard the name, and it talks about the ability of publishers to share data with the advertisers, and how data is being shared with third parties. And the scenario where we as adults, we go to booking.com and we want to book a hotel, but we didn't finish the order, right? Like it stayed open. And the same hotel that we clicked on, chases us all over the web, and we see it on Yahoo, and we see it on CNN. So
Yes.
this remarketing approach, the fact that the user could be tracked, and what he did is serving you on future sessions, this is completely forbidden in the kid space. Okay, you
Mhm.
can't use any data that you gathered on one impression, on one session, and use it later on. So this is user profiling or sending this user to the third party. This is forbidden.
So
And
SKAdNetwork happened to you years ago.
right, and so advertisers, they tend to understand that the whole concept of performance marketing doesn't exist, right? You can't really, or it needs to have it. You need to look at it from a different approach.
Yes.
And so we had to build our system ground up to be without users, relying on no data, and to be completely contextual. And contextual is becoming a very hot buzzword these days. But our system was built contextually, like the targeting is contextual from day one, just because we couldn't profile kids. We
Yes.
couldn't gather any data. We had to rely on the fact that we know nothing, and we need to delete every piece of data that we collect the minute it arrives. So everything we've built is data, is free of data. And what we've did is we've recruited the biggest publishers in the kid space. We told them, hey, instead of showing ads for Uber in the good case and Tinder in the bad case, show an ad that the kid would actually appreciate or like, and the parent won't, write a nasty comment on your App Store page.
Hmm.
And what the worst that can happen is Google and Apple will ban you from the store. And we've seen numerous cases where they've
Wow.
been banned just because they were too aggressive in their monetization approach, and some publishers they were putting in dozens of ad networks, and it was messy and ugly. But this is all gone because Google made a new policy about a year ago, and Apple made a new policy about a year ago as well. Google decided that if you belong to the kids category, there's a handful of advertising network that you can use. Luckily, we are one of them. They approached us immediately because they understood our contribution. But there's about 10, I think 11 networks out there that you can use. Only 2 of them are kid focused, but you can still use the others. Google doesn't care if the ad is relevant for the kid or not. They only care that it would be safe.
Yeah.
And Apple, on the other hand, they said something different. They said, well, you can advertise for kids. In general, you can't. In general, gathering analytics or advertising is forbidden, but you can use networks that are manually vetting and approving each and every creative.
Wow.
So it's kind of, again, putting a very, very tough limitation on those apps. But this is what we do. We thought, okay, at least our limitation became the advantage. The fact that we need to approve every ad became our advantage, and this led us to a significant growth in the last 2 years.
So what we have is a situation where there's tons of usage. There are new customers being born literally every second, but it's a tough market to access. There's a lot of rules and regulations around it, and it's a challenging market to monetize. Talk about user acquisition first, and then maybe we'll get to monetization in a moment. If we do user acquisition, if we do it the way that most mobile app marketers have known for the past 5 to 7, 8 years, it's throwing a lot of money in place, getting a lot of data, doing a lot of optimization, doing a lot of retargeting and other things like that really depend on having device level data, maybe even user level data, and running the cycle. That doesn't work. How do you successfully do user acquisition for kids apps today?
Well, there's only a handful of publishers that could probably afford doing user acquisition for kids apps. So, it wasn't a big drama when this was taken from them, because the lifetime value of kids tend to be smaller than it is for adults. So user acquisition was never a huge thing in the kids space. But still, there were players like ABC Mouse and the educational platforms that used to do heavy user acquisition, and they just had to amend the way they attribute, and at some point they were able to only attribute up to the install level. They said, okay, we will let you understand if an install happened, but we won't let you understand anything further than the install. And then SKAdNetwork began, and it's actually a positive change for the industry. So from a position where IDFA was taken away, all the data was taken away. Now there is, at least recently on Apple, they introduced a new SKAdNetwork, and it lets publishers to, in an aggregated way, in a way that doesn't harm and doesn't risk the kids' privacy, to understand the value of a source, of each source, and to attribute revenue to this source. So actually, in the last few months, and it's growing, their ability to do user acquisition, smart user acquisition, is actually growing, because IDFA was taken and they were out on the wide, they were like left blind, and many advertisers, many app publishers that wanted to do user acquisition stopped. For about a period of a year, they kind of stopped. And now we see them coming back, aggressively coming back, because they badly need new users, and they can do it in a smart and safe way through the new method.
Wow. So SKAdNetwork has been a great thing for kids focused apps. You get deterministic data on which campaigns worked, what channels work, all that stuff. It's not device level, it's not user level, so it's privacy safe. So that just works. That's great. Now, for kids apps, is there a difference? Is there a demarcation? Are you marketing some of them to parents and some of them to kids themselves, or are you just you picking?
The advertisers, they tend to I think the advertisers tend to understand that eventually kids decide. Okay, I think that the days
That's
of
bad news for parents. We like to think we're in charge.
no, this is way gone. Like you remember, like I don't know, 10 years ago, at least when my kids were younger, I remember going to the shop, thinking, oh, trying to think, what should I buy for my kid? And those days are gone. We're only buying the things that we were told to buy, right? And the kids, they know what they want. They tell us what they want. There's no um, there's nothing to do beyond what they ask us for. So I think this is where things stand today, and it relates also to apps. So
Mhm.
we see two kinds of apps today, like the more educational apps where they do need parent um, uh, involvement, right?
Mhm.
But but we also see that if the parent is the one that decides on downloading the app, the usage will decrease immediately because he
Mhm.
didn't take the kid
Yeah.
into account. So I think that now kid-focused advertising is becoming the norm. The even educational apps, they want the kid to say yes, to see that the experience suits him and he enjoys playing with the app, and then they bring the parent along to decide
Mhm.
about the subscription. But if it's only the parent decision, it won't work. So you need to recruit the kid from day one, regardless of what it is. If it's an app, if it's a toy, the kid is the decision maker. We've just surveyed kids recently, and kids and parents. 77% of parents said that their kids are actually asking them on a weekly basis what to
Mhm.
buy, and 73%, like almost all of them, are buying only what kids are asking for. And so the nag factor is stronger than ever, and parents just need to listen and
It almost
make
sounds like
money.
B2B marketing. You've got to sell individual people, and then they've got to kick the actual purchase decision upstairs. So let's talk about monetization. There's more data in the system now because of SKAdNetwork, which is privacy safe. That probably helps in terms of monetization as well. Is that correct?
It does, and I think that we've just released a new integration with Singular, and we're very proud of allowing our publishers to see more data within the Singular platform, and it helps them to do smart decisions. So I think that yes, today they're not limited to only the install level. They can see the revenue attached to it. They can make smart decisions. So I think monetization is easier today. And
Mhm.
the good side is that the budgets that are coming in from brands, from the Legos and the Disneys of the world are finally coming to mobile. The Disneys and the Legos, they kind of waited,
Yeah.
and they were the last segment that moved from TV to digital, just because of all the privacy regulations and their fears of COPA, etc. So monetizing today a kid's application is probably easier than ever, nicer than ever, safer than ever, because uh, there's clarity around it. 2 years, even 2 years ago, I was opening a kid's application. I would see ads of hosting services and financial services, and I thought, like, how does it make sense for the bankers and the financial services to waste so many impressions on kids apps? But this jungle is over. This is not happening anymore, and I think it's a nicer opportunity today. It's a nicer experience today to monetize it. You see nice ads coming in, and if you care about the overall experience of the app itself. You just created an app for kids, and you paid so much attention to the small details and the added value and the educational value, and then you pump it with ads that are irrelevant and ruin your experience. So now you have the ability through networks like us to complete the experience also from the ad perspective nicely. And it's also important to mention that, a few years ago, it was the norm to think that kids can only either pay a subscription or pay in app, or or it's a premium app, right? No one thought that ad-based monetization could kick off and still feel comfortable for the publisher. And I'm happy to say that the trend is totally to move to freemium apps that are relying on ad monetization, and ad monetization is now taking at least 50% of their revenues and is in charge of at least 50% of their revenues and growing. So I'm a big believer in safe ads for kids and monetizing it and allowing your content to be free, right? Because if you put a paywall, then you're actually saying to 95% of your user base, you can only enjoy a fraction of my app. And by opening it through ads, you're actually making it more accessible. Google's actually like it because they see the retention is higher and it gives you higher ranking on the store. So putting ads in your app is actually good also for retention, which is weird, but true.
Interesting. Especially when they're good ads and they're relevant ads and you're not selling fintech or something like that to 10-year-olds. A way to teach kids ad blindness right there. So we assume similar things will happen on the Android side. We see different little steps that Google's taking. So we'll probably get there on that side as well. Do you see an explosion coming in innovation and apps for kids because now there's a path to acquire users and now there's a path to monetize users?
It's an interesting question. I can't really say. I think it's more an evolution than a revolution. I think that we'll see more apps having the the courage to invest more in user acquisition. I still hope that they will be smart doing so and won't just waste too much, because just running a non-ROI positive campaign makes no sense. And we rather, every time a new advertiser comes to us and we say, we'd rather start small and scale once you learn the metrics and saw your KPIs, and let's grow together instead of just booming. And because the days again of pumping your rank on the store, hoping that it will bring organic downloads is gone as well. You need to bring value over time, not necessarily short-term value. So I do see it evolving and growing, but I think it's going to be smart and substantial rather than just a short-term boom.
Interesting. Maybe talk a little bit more about the integration with Singular. What was the purpose there? What's the goal? And what does that integration entail? And what does it give developers and publishers?
Sure. It came as a request from our publishers. Many of them are using Singular. They used Singular as their analytical system, and once Singular introduced the SDK, the attribution SDK, they asked us to implement it. I think back then we used to work with AppsFlyer and the other players, but we've seen that Singular kind of specifically looked at the kids market, and they understood that the need for kid-friendly attribution exists, and kid-friendly attribution wasn't really addressed by the other players, at least in a bold statement, right? No one kind of said we provide safe attribution for kids, and I'm very happy that Singular said so.
Wow.
So we obviously we communicate in terms of prospects between us, and the publisher could see how many impressions, how many clicks, how many installs, how much revenues he makes from every, and we even provide it on an app level, so we can do optimization on an app level. Well, if you see that the apps for younger kids contributes nicely to your app and bring good quality users, you can focus on them. and then decrease the amount of older kids, and vice versa. So we give data on an app level, so they can do really good optimization, and we help them to optimize towards the best performing channel.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you. Eldad, maybe a personal question before we close here. How did you get into the kid space? What motivated you? You got the entire world of technology to get into, and you happen to be the co-CEO and founder of a kid-focused company. How'd that happen?
A friend of mine said, I'm starting something, and my previous venture was in the dating scene, and it was at the time that I was, just
That's kind
going
of natural,
getting married.
dating leading to
Yeah,
kids. That,
maybe.
that sort of follows the natural flow of things.
Right. You get married, you want to get other people, you want other people to get married. So I launched dating sites, and now that I have kids, maybe I want more people to have kids, so I won't be the only one suffering, right? So so it came as an opportunity that I didn't pay any attention, and it was a decision that I didn't really foresee. And to be honest, when we found it, I didn't think that the kid space would be so challenging. I thought that it's just another market, and you just need to be, cute and funny and successful, and just do everything correctly. And we didn't understand how challenging in terms of regulation and safety you need to be. And there's a term, there's a phrase that says that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So we were, there were so
You're
many.
very strong right now.
There were so many things that were literally going to kill us, but then they made us stronger, and now they can't really. So I think we're beyond the phase of and we're
Well,
growing nicely, and we're growing actually very, very fast these days. So I'm very lucky that I picked this segment.
wonderful. And I mean, the good thing about doing something difficult is that you don't have 50 million competitors necessarily, right? Because most people pick a space that they understand. They pick a space where there's a more defined path to success. Eldad, I want to thank you for taking a little bit of time and helping us understand a little bit more about the opportunity for kids and how now it's more accessible than ever. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you, everyone.